G'day guys, and welcome back to an episode of our Kart Class podcast. I'm your host, 18-time Australian Champion David Sera, and today we're going to be discussing how to read your child's driving. So, a lot of parents out there, some of them have a racing background, so they can sort of see things that other parents who are new to the sport, they can't see. We're trying to help the people that are new parents to the sport, to karting. Their kids are really invested, they're really excited to get into the track, and we want to try and help you guys, the parents, help your kids so that you don't necessarily need coaching all the time. Now, what are we looking for when it comes to coaching? Now, the biggest things are how we're entering the corner, how we're going around the corner, so the apex point, and how well we're exiting. When it comes to the entry to a corner, we're looking at how well we're using the brakes. Now, some of the things we're looking for is we don't want to hear, if your cart's accelerating, like, we don't want to hear a lifting moment and then a braking moment. We're just trying to minimize that nothing time. Now, this generally happens with a lot of newcomers. So what happens is they go flat out on a straight, approaching a corner, they lift off. That lift off moment is when the more experienced drivers are starting to use the brakes. And now what happens is, as they start turning into the corner, the experienced driver is starting to release that brake, where the newcomer is doing it the opposite way around. So they're lifting. As they start turning the corner, they're thinking, uh-oh, I've got too much speed. And it's at that point that they use the brakes. Now, the problem is steering input with a decent amount of brake. That's what really kicks the back end around. It could spin out, it might slide. But once we start to reverse that around, so you want to hear the acceleration. And if it's a braking corner, you want to hear it. It's literally like a light switch moment. So it's acceleration, straight to the brake. As we're starting to turn, that's when we start to release the brake modulation. And then once we get into the middle of the corner, the apex, we're starting to apply that acceleration again. So if you do notice that your son or daughter is doing that, all you're trying to say is, from a coaching perspective, again, I know that a lot of kids don't really want to listen to their parents, but you're just trying to obviously, minimize the amount of words that, could get into an argument basically with these kids, is that you're saying on certain corners, now it might be just 2 corners per track, or it might be 3 or 4 depending on the track layout. On these particular corners, once you're releasing that brake pedal, that's the time that you hit the brakes. Once you've brought the speed down, start to release the brake as you're turning in and accelerate at the middle of the corner. That should hopefully clear things up. With a lot of tyres being quite soft and sticky or grippy these days, we don't need to overuse the brakes too much. So what we used to coach is, a light lock of the brakes, and then obviously that brings your speed down pretty quickly. Nowadays with a super sticky tyre, we're trying to hear less locking of the brakes. We don't want to overslow the kart. So all I'm trying to get at is, if you hear the brakes locking, it's not a bad thing, it's okay, but as soon as your kid is hearing the brakes starting to lock, that's when you want to let them know that's the point to release. So you don't want to hear like a constant locking of a second or half a second. You want to hear a little, and as soon as it locks, that's the point to get off the brakes and then carry that momentum through the actual apex of the corner. So I hope that's something you can look at in regards to how the braking looks into a corner. Now, when it comes to the apex, the middle of the turn, what I'm trying to concentrate on is, when I'm coaching, is, are the drivers accelerating once? Now, typically, again, a newcomer, because they're not confident or they're not committed, they tend to accelerate. So they start to pick up the gas, potentially, before the middle of the apex. They're doing it a little bit early. And they have to lift off again and go, and maybe lift even a second time and go again. So that constant release of the acceleration is just going to hurt you on the way out of the corners. But what it's also doing is it's unsettling the go-kart. So the kart starts to accelerate. It starts to try and put that weight on the rear of the kart. Then again, we're lifting. So then it's taking that weight off the rear tyres, and then you're putting it back down. And so the chances are, when you're on and off the gas a few times, there's going to be oversteering, and you're going to start to see their hands start to have multiple corrections when going around the corner. So what I'd try and coach from a parent's perspective is, if you hear your driver, again, on and off the gas a couple of times, I'd rather you just say, just wait until you get to the middle of the corner. So rather than, even if you're braking early for now, that's okay. Just a bit of patience. Even going a little bit slower for 1 or 2 seconds is not a bad thing. Just accelerate in the right spot. Do it once. Our exit speed will come back. So we might be losing a little bit on the entry. But what's going to happen is, from the driver's perspective, they're going to start to feel slow. And that's not a bad thing. So basically what's going to happen is we're going to try and bring up that braking zone further and further and further into the corner. But we're still going to accelerate in the middle and once, so we're getting the exit the same as what every other driver is. The reason why this on and off the gas happens quite a bit is from, we're braking early, we're thinking as a driver, I'm going too slow, so I'm going to get my speed back, so I'm going to accelerate soon. Drum with that is, we're accelerating too early, we can't hold that speed, lifting off, getting it around the corner now, and then reapplying it. So we're not really gaining anywhere, to be honest. We're sort of giving up speed on the entry. We've got speed for like a kart length that we've accelerated in the wrong zone. Then as we're lifting again, that's when everyone else is back on the throttle and getting a good run out of the corners. So it's quite frustrating from a driver's point of view. And even when you're watching, you might now notice, that's actually what my son or daughter is doing. They're lifting early. They don't know that. They're trying to push harder in the wrong spot. You can't really gain time as you're approaching the apex with accelerating too soon. And then that second lift is actually where it's all coming unstuck. So from the sidelines, just try and listen to where the driver's placing the accelerator. If it's multiple times, wait an extra second, and then just try and apply it in the middle of the corners for now, and that should be pretty safe. When it comes to the exit of a corner, depending on the sequence of corners that are about to happen, like just say we're exiting a hairpin and it's a decent straight, or there's not a quick succession of corners. The exit is all about trying to utilize all the racetrack with minimal steering. So again, we're talking about the middle of the apex, about having these corrections. We don't want to exit the kart, half a kart or a kart width narrow, because basically the extra steering lock is what's going to be acting as like a brake. So the more you turn the steering wheel, it's going to be slowing the kart down. It's creating an extra drag and an extra force that your little engines just can't quite accelerate out of. So really the exit is all about just minimizing steering input, letting the kart flow, and setting yourself up for the following corners. Hopefully if you've done point 1, the braking zone or the entry to a corner, pretty well, that sets you up for hitting the apex and also accelerating once. And if you accelerate in the right point, again, that middle, it should have enough speed to actually force your kart towards the outside of the track. But where a lot of the newcomers get unstuck is, the speed's probably pretty good. They're just a little bit nervous to put the kart right towards the edge. So they actually are steering it more to keep it on the track. So actually working against where the kart wants to go, and that could create a little bit of an oversteering moment. But basically, once you're at the middle of the apex, again, look to the exits, look to the edge of the track, and your eyes should hopefully help drive the kart towards the edge of the track. It's basic stuff, but to be honest, basics are what we work on, even at a national level. Like, it's literally just those little 1%ers that are going to give you half a tenth to a tenth on a couple of corners. And when you're driving against, 20, 25, even up to 40 karts on the grid, those little improvements could pick you up 5 or 6 spots pretty quickly. So it's not reinventing the wheel. It's just doing the basics pretty well. Once you're doing them pretty well, you can step it up, that half a kart into the braking zone. Accelerate half a kart earlier. Let the kart get to literally a couple of mil from the edge of the track. And that's where you're going to get towards the top half a dozen karts on the track. So hopefully you guys, when you go to the track next time, have got a couple of key spots that you can look towards. So at least that way you're not going there blind from a parent's point of view. You sort of have a couple of things that you can just try and concentrate on. Look towards the hardest corners first, get the hairpins right, and then just try and relate that same method to the more fast and flowing corners. So yeah, hopefully those 3 tips give you guys something to work with. And we'll keep in touch over the next couple of podcasts where we try and give you guys some more insights into how you can help your son or daughter at the racetrack rather than needing a lot of coaching. So hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you have learnt something, try and pass on this podcast to other parents who could be stuck in their kart racing, so we can try and help out some more people out there in the karting community. Until next time, thanks guys, we'll keep in touch. Cheers.